Hey everyone, it's Shawn. Welcome to another edition of McBride for Business YouTube show. We're going to be talking about some important business skills today. Specifically, how do you think on your feet in business and how do you use improv in business? So when I got thinking about this topic, there was no one other than Gina Trimarco that I would reach out to have as a guest. She works in the improv world. She is adamant about improv and she is passionate about it and she really knows how to mix it into business. So we're going to be talking about that today. Should give you some great takeaways that you can use to up the level of your business. So Gina, why don't you say hi to folks and let them start to get to know you, what you've done, and then we'll jump into some real
Sure.
for our viewers.
Hey, everybody. I'm so excited to be here. I was so excited when you hit me up and said, do I want to come back on with you? I love always being on with you. And I was like, oh, how funny. We're launching a bunch of virtual series. And you're like, oh, I saw that in your feed. So that's what, yeah. So we own Carolina Improv Company, which is our improv comedy theater, which sadly is closed right now due to COVID. And we're the last to get opened in the entertainment category in South Carolina. So hanging out there. And then Pivot Results is our training and consulting business. Improv is just one of the modalities that we use to help businesses shift from people problems to performance results. And we use a lot of improv to do that.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're living in a world of improv right now in the business world, right? I mean, there could be no better time for improv ideas because, I work a lot with salespeople at different times. And, we talk a lot in sales about kind of having a script, knowing what questions might be asked, responding to questions. Guess what? It's all out the window right now because everybody's got different demands. Everybody's businesses are in different places. So
yeah, every day is an improv routine. As a matter of fact, I was putting on some makeup for this today because I'm so. It's not like much has changed because I still got to get up, get dressed, put on my face, and be have a game face. And while I was getting ready, one of my clients called, and every day I think I understand what's going on. And then a client calls and says, hey, that leadership training program we do, we have to take the whole thing online. What do you think of that? I was like, oh, I didn't even think about it. I was thinking like everything will be back to normal in September, but it won't be. And I said, you got this. We can make this happen. I know how to get people to engage online. So it's interesting to me that there are still organizations struggling with adapting to what's going on right now and that they have to be able to convert.
Well, a lot of people, I think, like you said, kind of were like, hey, let's just wait this out, right? Like if we just kind of pause, we'll just go back to normal and everything.
Even I did that.
Yeah.
I'm like, people were like, no, take your shows online. I'm like, no, I'm going to wait it out. Take your classes online. I'm like, no, I'm going to wait it out. And I'm like, well, not waiting it out anymore.
No, you can't. And so I think that's where kind of the improv idea comes in this, right? At some point, we're in this fluid world and things are changing so fast. Sometimes you just have to go with it, right? I mean, that's kind of a skill that you've honed over the years. Why don't you talk a little bit about that and kind of what you think about that?
The honing of the improv skills, I've coined a new term. I'm calling it improvised intelligence. This is something that we're born with. We've been wired to be able to respond in the moment, think fight or flight, think survival. We have this in our DNA to do this. What happens though as adults is that we stop using those skills that we were born with to be present in the moment. And I know it sounds a little bit woo-woo, but to really be paying attention to what's going on around you, listening, observing, collaborating. We have that ability, but if we don't practice it, we lose it. And it's a matter of exercising the brain muscle. And if we don't exercise it, it atrophies. So we all have the ability to do it. We just have to practice it. And as an improv performer and instructor, I'm constantly practicing it. So when people say, how are your performers so fast on stage? Oh, well, it's a practice. We're no different than anybody else other than we use it more than most people.
Right. And I think it's a skill you can hone, right?
100%.
Yes.
Yeah. Every time someone says they can't do it, I'm like, bullshit. Oh, I'm sorry. Can I say that? You know me, I got a potty mouth.
You just did.
sorry. I forgot I'm not on my own podcast.
On your own podcast. Exactly. So I think one of the things is, so you gotta accept the information as it comes at you. And I think that's a big skill that you learned in improv, right? Is it comes to you, you accept it, and then you work with it. And I don't think we normally think about those terms a lot of times. In standard business training, it's like, do it this way, do it that way. And now we're in a world even more so than before where stuff is coming at you different ways.
Well, I think we have to get into the mindset of collaboration. I mean, we should always be in that mindset, but now more than ever, I think there's so much uncertainty and there's so much that is no longer the norm, and solutions are needed for almost everything in your business because everything's different and you can't do it by yourself. So one of the things that I've seen in organizations is they're struggling with getting input from their employees, like, hey, we want you to collaborate with us and suggest things. And the employees are like, what? Oh, you want me? I'm not used to that. And so we have to start fostering cultures where, yes, I don't have all the answers. Let's kind of brainstorm this out. And that acceptance piece that you talked about, Shawn, in the improv world, as you know, we call it yes and. And yes and does not necessarily mean we have to agree. Yes and is just a mindset of acceptance of ideas, acceptance of thoughts, acceptance of beliefs. I don't have to agree with all of them. I just have to be open.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of one of the things we're going to have to do more and more of, right? Is not just from a leadership philosophy, and I think that's a real challenge for leaders right now. Is usually as a leader, you're thought to have all the answers, and given the current market environment, you may not have all the answers. And then as somebody who is working with maybe a customer or a vendor, you're going to have to kind of have that yes and philosophy, right? And okay, what's your situation? You've got a cash flow problem. Yes, and we're going to do what? So I think how do you talk about that philosophy like in a real life, conversation with a customer? How do you bring some of the improv ideas in there when they start bringing up things you weren't expecting or situations
like the objections, like the sales objections? What I've been doing, my approach through all of this, because as a training and consulting company, training is like the first thing cut out of a budget normally. And I've had to try to figure out how to reinvent. And that's where my listening skills, my communication skills become extremely important. So my approach has been reaching out to clients and prospects, both. I've been calling previous clients and people that I'd been prospecting and just kind of like feeling them out. Like, hey, I just want to find out what's going on in your business. I'm just trying to get an idea of, what's the pulse out there right now. So I don't approach them with a sales approach. And then as I have these conversations, I started turning it into more of an interview process that I'm just doing this data gathering. And what has resulted is I'm able to really hear where they need help. I had one company say to me, what we're going to need is more consulting than training. We're going to need someone to help us with re-onboarding employees, and we're going to need ways to figure out how to continue to work from home and engage our employees because we haven't been doing a really good job at that. So the approach I've taken is like really listening and getting out of my own way of like, these products and services that we used to offer, we're going to have to change them if we want to survive. So that's one piece of it. The other thing I've done, because I work with a lot of small businesses to help them, and I've done a lot of kind of pro bono work during this time period. So I'm really in the mindset of being a go-giver. So I know if I give, things return. I have tested a couple ideas where I said, hey, I don't have cash flow, but I have services. Anybody want to trade out with me, which I'm not always a big fan of, but that's sort of like throwing an idea out there. And what that resulted for me was I've got radio advertising that's starting to promote all of our online training. I didn't pay for that. I have a marketing firm that's come on to help us with marketing and branding in exchange for services. I didn't pay for that because the new currency right now, in my opinion, is skills and experience. So if you don't have cash flow, get creative with how do you continue to keep your business going? And that's improv.
Exactly. Well, we're all improving with situations we weren't anticipating, right? We weren't anticipating these regulatory overlays, weren't expecting getting shut down. Everybody's business plan is largely being rewritten this year.
Yeah.
And if you're joining us live, feel free to drop us a comment. Let us know where you're joining us from. Let us know what kind of unusual situations you've been seeing in business. Maybe Gina and I will improv through how to work through that, because that would be fun to just kind of talk about what's happening. If you're watching a recording, comment too, because I'm sure Gina will come back and join me again, and we can address your specific issues. So Gina, so I think you hit upon one of the things I've been telling people to do on a sales side, which is just to have conversations, right? Just to open the door. Don't go in there to sell anything necessarily. Just kind of be like, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Customer, how's your business going? What's going on? Lead us through what maybe one of those conversations looks like from the recipient standpoint. At what point do you kind of start to interject, or how long? I guess you just listen and respond, right?
Yeah. It's so funny. Somebody asked me about this last week. I did a virtual conference for 3 days, and we covered leadership, sales, and problem solving. And someone emailed me and said, do you have a script for these conversations you're having? And I'm like, no. No, there is no script. And I was like, should I come up with one? I'm like, no, that is so opposite of what I do.
I think that's the mindset shift, right? It's not a script. And I think so many people think sales script. And, particularly when we have, maybe a call team or something, you give them a script. You're like, say this, say this.
We've been so focused on having a playbook and not a book of play.
Exactly. And so the improv skills are more like, what can we do? How do we respond? How do we build that muscle of being able to be in the moment and to react and do so in a way that really makes business sense, right? So it's just a completely different philosophy.
Yeah, and it's so much about give and take in a conversation. There are some exercises we do. There's an exercise I call therapy, where someone does all the speaking and the other person can only listen and never interject. And that's a practice, and that's hard, and people really struggle with that. And so the instruction I give them is, I want you to listen to this person with such intent that you're going to be able to repeat back everything you heard that person say. And they look at me and go, what?
Yeah, I think that's a great one.
Can I take notes? I'm like, you can take notes. The only thing I would warn you on is that when you are looking down to take notes, you're not connecting. And we can very easily connect in this platform now. And that's something that I've been teaching people too, is like, I'm looking at the camera right now, but if I want to really pay attention to you, Shawn, I'm looking at my screen right now.
Right.
But people can feel if I'm not connected.
Yes, right? It's very tricky with the online meetings, because you have the camera here and you have the screen here, and you're trying to juggle between the two because you want to know what's happening. You want to watch the other person, but you also want to be connected. So
you want to be connected. And so it's really paying attention to what's going on so that you can connect with people.
Yeah, and I think that's a very valuable thing. But I love the idea of being able to repeat the conversation back. That's great. And I think sometimes, go into listen mode rather than the sell mode, which means, and I heard this in a negotiation class recently, and it's something we should all be doing, which is let the person finish their statement. And when they say something, then you pick a point of clarification and you let them clarify that allows you to go deeper into what their issues are.
And it's real easy to get to clarify if the yes and exercise that we use, that's a literal yes and exercise. They have to listen and then they have to repeat verbatim what they heard. And in the repeating verbatim, validation comes automatically, because it's like, oh, you heard me because you repeated me exactly. And so I feel listened to, which now I feel validated, which now I feel trusted, and I have trust for you. And now I like you because of that. And I want to reciprocate. So I want to reciprocate in hearing what you have to say about your business. And so that's just kind of this human connection that is a natural thing to do. And as far as when to interject, we take that therapy exercise another step. When it's like, when you see that person is running out of things to say, I tell them, now that's when the listener gets to go, oh, tell me more about, and then pick a detail that you heard And then and you, instead of repeating verbatim, you just pick a detail to kind of repeat or ask them to tell you more about. And it's not asking a question, it's saying, tell me more, which is different. Because when we start going into question, it puts people on the spot and makes them uncomfortable. But when we say, tell me more, it makes me go, oh, you want me to talk some more about myself? Okay.
Right. It's good conversation skills, and it's facilitating, right? And I think that's the whole issue right now is, we kind of all had preset expectations. We shouldn't have them. We shouldn't have had them before COVID-19, but we did. We kind of went into this situation. You kind of you knew the state of play. Now we don't know the state of play, which is doubling down on the need for these skills.
Yeah, you know what's so funny? I was updating some of our content descriptions on our website today, and I was looking at our spontaneous selling series that we have, and I was like, go back to old school way of doing things. Don't rely on technology. I was like, oh damn, I have to change. I have to change all the copy on that.
Right.
So it's like technology is your friend, and you can still be old school over technology.
But I think you're yes and no, right? I mean, yes and technology. You don't want to rely on the technology to do the work. You can rely on the technology as a tool. So,
right. Yeah, there's a difference.
Zoom, connect over a telephone, connect over a video meeting. But don't say, oh, well, I'll just send people a bunch of messages on LinkedIn. I'll just spam everybody in the world on LinkedIn, and I'll hope I'll get a sale, right? You guys still got to do the same work. You can't let the technology do the work.
Yeah, and I put that in when I was writing the copy for that. I'm like, you can't rely on texts and emails. Right. You cannot, you still have to have conversations. What's changed is we're not necessarily having in-person conversations. Now, this is also a great way to hone your skills for phone conversations. There are a lot of people that are not comfortable getting on the phone and having a conversation. And so you need to look at that and continue to get better at that. But now you have the next element of everybody wanting to Zoom. And especially if you're not comfortable on video, that's yet another obstacle for you. And a lot of people use that as an excuse. Oh, I don't want to be in video.
Right. Yeah, I hear that a lot. Some people are concerned about it. More people have used Zoom now, right? Because I often offer Zoom meetings to people, and it used to be, oh, I've never used it, I don't understand it. And now more and more people are like, oh yeah, I used Zoom last week, it's great, blah, blah, blah. So but it changes the dynamic definitely from I think you have to change your listening skills, particularly if you're doing a phone call versus a video meeting. A video meeting, you're gonna get a lot more clues. A phone call, you have to be a lot more sensitive to the inflection and tone.
Yeah, and I think there's also some etiquette that needs to go with it on both sides. I'm now running different virtual classes online, and I pay, or even in my company meetings, I'll seem like, okay, all y'all need to get off your phones. I see you doing this, right? It's like, just because we're doing this doesn't mean this opens up the door for multitasking. So everyone needs to be engaged. So there's things that you can do that kind of will keep people in the moment in a meeting like this, because you're going to have to work a little bit harder to engage them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's always that chance of they got the other screen there. They've probably got their cell phone sitting next to them. They got the dog barking in the other room.
The kids screaming.
Yeah, or they just raced down to the office to talk to you because they were 5 minutes ago, they were mediating a dispute between their children.
Yes.
So it's really a different time. But I think the tools that we've been talking about, that we've been alluding to with the improv, is, it puts you in the moment. And if you're doing it correctly, if you're responding back to them in a positive way and staying in the conversation, it leads to a more connected conversation. It's harder for them to step away.
Yeah. And the best thing to do is to really pay attention to someone and let them have the spotlight. That's always the best way to keep them engaged. One of our number one rules in improv is make other people look good.
Yeah.
Well, there's no better way to make someone look good than to listen to them and care what they say.
Exactly. I think it's, which book was it? One of the classics, where he said, you become the most interesting person by asking lots of questions and being interested in other people.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I want to say it was Zig Ziglar.
I think it may have been one of those Zig Ziglar books.
Yeah.
Yeah, but basically the premise was that
People don't care what you have to say until they know how much you care. Yeah.
Right.
I
If you
think
ask other people the right questions, you pay attention to what they're saying, you pick up on their conversation, they'll find you extremely interesting if just by being interested in them.
Exactly. It's there was a meme floating and I can't find it. Someone had showed it to me once in a training session, and it was this cartoon, and it was in one frame, someone doing all the talking and someone just doing the listening. And then in the next frame, you see the listener happens to walk away and the talker is like, gosh, he was so nice.
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
he never spoke.
Yeah, I mean, it flips on its head what we normally think about a conversation, right? We normally think you want to get your points across, you want to express yourself and all of that, but you have this great opportunity just to be asking questions and get liked for it.
Yeah.
And the improv tool is nothing better. So, Gina, I know you're an expert in this area. You teach people in it. You do consulting and training. How do people find you? Talk about your podcast and all the other fun stuff.
All the other fun stuff. Well, of course, fun stuff. Women Your Mother Warned You About, the podcast that makes business sexy again with my co-host, Rachel Pitts. You can go to womenyourmotherwarnedyouabout.com to check that out. Great. We try to combine content with life hacks and how do you get through life and business and be amazing at it and be exactly who you are. So it's a fun podcast. To check out some of our virtual trainings that we are starting to launch right now, we've got Improvise Your Business and Spontaneous Selling in a Zoom World. You can go to pivot10results.com and find those there. Or you can find me at ginatrimarco.com, and that leads you to all paths, Gina.
Fantastic, folks. Make sure you subscribe, ring the bell for notifications here on the McBride for Business YouTube channel. We're bringing you all the things you need to be a better business owner, a better business leader, including today. We want to see your comments, so drop them below, and we'll see you again soon. Gina, thanks for being such a fantastic guest.
Thanks, guys.